panel that we have and the topic that we have, it's quite important because that's essentially what the whole ecosystem is about. It's empowering the organizations that work with the startups that ultimately that empowerment can lead into business growth for those startups. So I would like to just start maybe with you, Alex, uh, with my first question to you. Maybe if you can just share some of the initiatives that you are doing from GIZ perspective, and then how has been those initiatives supporting the African startups, especially towards their business growth?
Sure. GIZ is a big complex organization. We have a lot of 1,000 projects in different countries. And for regional projects that are aware of, we have SI Jobs that are doing a lot of things, Invest for Jobs that are doing a lot of things in different countries. Then the projects I am working on are supporting Develop Ventures, which is a matchmaking fund for entrepreneurs where we co-invest 100,000 euro as grants, and we look for investors to come up with 100,000 euros also. I think we'll be piloting the first phase, or we'll be piloting the initial phase for the Francophone West Africa in Ivory Coast, ending the year November, December, and then beginning of next year. And we have been doing that for 3 years now in Anglophone Africa, in Ghana and Nigeria, and tackling South Africa ending of this year. And also I'm working with Make IT, and then for the Catalyst project, we are supporting climate tech startups in West Africa, and which is in 3 phases. We have what we call the pre-acceleration phase 1, where we want to get where we want to get startups, entrepreneurs with innovative ideas on how to tackle climate change challenges. And Catalyst stands for concerted action to accelerate local 1.5 degrees Celsius technology. So it is a project that aims to support startups that are working in keeping the global warming at 1.5 degree. So we are talking about decarbonizations, we are talking about green gas emissions, how to reduce the emission, the CO2 emissions. So this is all of this kind of startup that we are we are supporting. So there is a sector agnosis. If you are related to climate or you think you have a climate potentials, then you can come through the program. So we have the phase 1, pre-accelerations, that talk about ideation, that talk about ideas, very early stage. The phase 2 is tackling around MVP. So on phase 1, we help you identify the potential, the climate potentials. On phase 2, we help you develop the MVP with 15,000 euro grants for you to develop the MVP. And in acceleration phase, we give you between 50,000 to 200,000 euro to scale up. But for the acceleration, we want to see startups, we want to see products, we want to see customer, we want to see businesses. So it's climate, but it's also business.
Awesome. I think that's great work that you're doing, Alex. Maybe just a follow-on question before I pass on the mic. Are you working with any local incubators, accelerators, as GIZ, to run that program, or can you just give us how that works?
Yeah, since the program has been co-financed by GCF, the Green Climate Fund, and BMZ, we work in the region with Investisseurs and Partner, IPED, who is working also in the different countries with Komwe Capital in Ivory Coast, Teranga Capital in Senegal, and Burkina and Co. We're also working with Climate Kick from Europe, who is managing the climate assessment and impact assessment part. So these are the 2 main beneficiaries of the grant to run and implement the Catalyst program on ground in West Africa, Francophone West Africa. But then they are also working with other local hubs, Bondinov, Burkina Business Incubator in Burkina, Adina Hermetic in Mauritania, Together in Guinea. So these are the different hubs. Also Incubivoir in Africa for other aspects of for the pre-accelerations, the climatons that we want to do. And so we have different local hubs in those 8 countries.
Okay. I really like how you've brought in the local ecosystem to participate in that big project. I'll come back to you on follow-up questions. Just to you, Nadine, maybe as the founding partner and managing director at Impact Hub, you are really at the forefront of fostering innovation. Maybe just set the tone for us and just help us understand what unique advantages does the Impact Hub model offer to startups in Abidjan, and how can this be replicated across the continent?
Thank you. We founded Impact Hub Abidjan in 2019, and we are 4 co-founders, 4 women, that are coming from the consulting sector and also from the communication sector. And I think one unique advantage that we're bringing into the market is that we are offering high-level expertise to younger enterprises at a cheap cost or through programs. Generally, one difficulty that a lot of companies or organizations that are supporting startups or SMEs in Cote d'Ivoire are facing is that they don't have access to high quality expertise based on the budget that they get from donors. And where we are very different and where we have a higher value is that the 4 co-founders have an internal expertise. So very rarely would we need to hire external partners, and that allows us to deliver high quality programs at a cheap cost. And I think that's a very big difference that we observe. Another thing is great ideas don't make any innovation. It's delivery that makes innovation, and you need, as a company and as young people, to have some example of people that have been doing it for some time and that can support you in the process. In Cote d'Ivoire, for example, the current startups that we're observing are founded by younger people that are coming, whether they were teenager or very young during the war period. Right? So if you were teenager or young during the war period, you have very little hope or vision because you are coming from an area where there was very little hope and very little development when it comes to small businesses. So what you want to do is also make sure that the people that are holding or running these businesses have this kind of vision in terms of leadership, in terms of value that they can deliver. So we spend a lot of time during our program at the beginning on leadership. It's very important that the people that are running those businesses are very highly driven individuals that want to take what they are taking from the beginning to the end until it becomes a business. So from us, it's leadership that is key, and it's part of all our programs. The beginning is about yourself, and then how is your team, and how can you make sure that you empower your team. And once we finish doing that, we spend some time taking them through innovation. Why? Because it's also important to look at the cultural setting in which we are. Mistakes are not always forgiven. In Cote d'Ivoire, even culturally, if you make a mistake and there's a big something bad that happens on your name, it's very hard to recover from it. So people are highly scared of making mistakes when it comes to startups. They want to make sure everything is perfect. They want to make sure they do things big. So we are not part of an environment that will value experimentation, that will value the test. So how do we create a space where they are safe? How can we use the co-founders and the mentors to provide that kind of ground where the startups can fail or even be have their hand held, so they can go to bigger companies and test the solution. So that's a very high value that also we bring, because our co-founders have a very good network in the country and are very known in the field, and they can support them. And also our mentors. We run a lot of women program because we understand that women, when they're involved in something and they give themselves in the program and everything, the results are higher and the impact is well felt. So we have specific women program where we support women to really fit into the startup ecosystem, because there are very few women. How do we make sure that women understand how to innovate? And we have that. My personal area of expertise is product development and human-centered design. So supporting them to really understand this methodology, the methodology of experimentation and data. People don't know here how to collect data, how to make sure that whatever they're presenting is based on evidence. And we are teaching them this methodology of looking for evidence and making sure that we are not coming from I think. Everybody thinks, but we have evidence for what we're doing. And startups are struggling with that they have issues presenting the data behind the ideas and the innovation they are bringing. Collaboration is another thing that we do with other funding partners, banks, microfinance institution, business angel. We created the Cote d'Ivoire Business Angel Network with our co-founders to allow people that have money to come and invest in startups. Because when we were working with startups, sometimes a startup is stuck because of $200,000. Sorry, 200,000 safer. It can be $500, and the person can move to the next level, because people are becoming co-founders of startups most of the time here because they don't have a job. They are not co-founding those startups for a lot of them because they had a lot of experience. I don't have a job, I see an opportunities, how do I get into this space? So they don't generally have a little seed capital that can allow them to even start. So we are now providing this kind of funding as part of a structure to support this, because we were doing it initially as volunteers. So I mean, I can expand better, but I would say it's the idea of putting yourself at the position of the startups and the individuals that are coming. I think we need to be aware that the way the startup ecosystem is formed in Cote d'Ivoire is very different from the way it's formed in other countries. When you look at Nigeria and Kenya, those are not the same type of environment. And we can see a lot of startups are starting. Even incubators, they are struggling to survive. You have very few incubators that have more than 5 years of existence because the environment is not set up the way other ecosystems are set up. Yeah.
Some of the key takeaways from what you just said, Nadine, is that as an ESO supporting startups, if we were to replicate how the success of Impact Hub in Abidjan, the key factors to include is have holistic programs. Create an environment of collaboration that involves the whole ecosystem, including private sector, mentors, and even access to funding. I think what you're touching on in yesterday's panels, there was quite a lot of discussion on getting the startups investment ready, such that by the time investment comes in, there's a lot of work that has been done by the accelerator to get them to be investment ready. So essentially, that's what Impact Hub is doing. Amazing. On that line of investment, Aurelia, I want to just come to you and ask this question to you. I mean, as a senior impact investment manager at Sanofi, you have a unique perspective on the needs and challenges, especially in the impact investment landscape. Could you share your insights on these aspects, and also how, as Sanofi is rolling out impact investment to support the startup ecosystem?
Okay, thank you very much. Indeed, as an venture capital and impact investor, we recognize that financial capital is not enough. It isn't enough to bring a transformational and a scale to the startup that we invest in. So holistic is the word. We need to work on many different things. And within the impact fund, we have what we called additionality. So we first really leverage on the employee, the expertise in-house within Sanofi. Since we invest in health tech, in startups that bring the care and the treatment to the population, we have within Sanofi experts around the supply chain of the drugs, around the customer acquisition, around the market, just to get to know the market. And we bring this by mentorship to our investees. We also work with some consulting firm with very focused and specific technical assistance. So when we bring in an investee, we invest, we bring the money. We really ask them, what keeps you awake at night? What is your pain point? Where can we help you? And we identify in the portfolio that we build, because we cannot solve all the problem, we build a portfolio around the supply chain of the medicament, what we call pharmacy-based model. We realize that the main reason of the cash burn of this startup is the way they handle the fulfillment order. So we really build a module, very operational module, on that kind of topic. And then I go to Impact Hub, I talk with As2, I go to GIZ, to M Studio, because they are the one who can bring the investment readiness, the fact that to build a business plan, to build an investment deck, how to pitch. This we cannot bring. We have partners in the ecosystem that can bring this type of skills and competencies, and we try to support on where we are good at. So this is briefly how we can. But indeed, we identify differences in the ecosystem within the English-speaking zone and the Francophone Africa, which is more fragmented, and in terms of level of maturity, the less investment ready, as you said. So the effort, the product, and the type of support that we need to bring in Francophone Africa is really different than what we can bring in English-speaking Africa. Yeah.
Just a follow-on question. I think that would now apply to the different verticals that represented by Alex, Nadine, and Aurelia, because you're coming from a DFI, an ESO, and an investor. You've just mentioned now how Francophone and Saxo English-speaking Africa is different. How do you see the fragmentation in the ecosystem being? What sort of strategies can we do to make sure that there is more collaboration in Francophone startup within the DFIs, investors, and the ESOs? How would you see that fragmentation being dissolved between DFI, ESOs, and investors? Any one of you, you can please take it.
I will just give a quick healthcare perspective. The regulation in English-speaking Africa, it is really, how do we say, free. You can find 2 pharmacies next one to another. It is not the case in Francophone Africa. In English-speaking Africa, you can bring care within pharmacy. You can do teleconsultation within pharmacy. You can do a lot of lab and diagnostic, which you cannot be which cannot be done in Francophone Africa. Also, the delivery, this just easy convenience to deliver the drug to the patient is something that is easy and able in English-speaking Africa, and which is not allowed in Francophone. So the value proposition of the startup need to be adapted depending on the regulatory environment. Okay. This is just one example.
All right. Nadine, Alex, you want to take?
Yeah, I think
very briefly.
Yes, very quickly. I think one other big difference that we can try to bridge is the question of talents. I think that's what makes a big difference. Even the startup founders that we see in Francophone Africa, a lot of them are coming from the English-speaking countries. They studied there and they have this mindset. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to share that kind of mindset and create some kind of exchange between both markets. They need to have, the language is a barrier, as you can say, but I think the local, what we advise our startups is English is you need to learn. You need to learn how to speak English if you want to learn from them, if you want to bring in new startup in the country and apply. So for me, there's that. And also just importing some solution. That we don't need to be recreating the same thing. A lot of our markets look the same in terms of needs. So how do you travel to Ghana, go to Nigeria, find solutions that are working there, and come and create branches in Francophone Africa? This will stimulate the ecosystem. We don't need to start from zero because we don't have the same talent. They have some talents over there that we don't have, and we can use their technology and some of the solutions to push the market when it comes to innovation, and that will push the rest of the market to follow.
I wanted to tackle it from the macro level with an example in Ghana. What we did with the different actors, I mean, starting from GIZ, we created a donor coordination, so with World Bank, with other DFIs, with USAID, and it came from the ministries, the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization of Ghana, came out and then with their digitalization strategy plan, and then they came to us, they told us that this is our strategy, this is what we want to implement in the country for the next 5 years, and then this is what we request from you. So we came together with the other donors, with World Bank, with EU, and then we sat down. GIZ, where are you working from? World Bank, what are you doing here? How much do you have? And then we came together on the roundtable discussions, and then we set the basis like, okay, we are doing this, you are doing that, and then we all talk together. From there, we went to the Ghana Hub Network, a network of ASOS, a network of incubator, accelerator, operating in the various regions of Ghana. So what are the things that you guys need, and then how much do you need? From there, we gave grants, and then we set up a lot of bases, right? So it came from the macro level, from the government, from the country. This is our vision, this is our strategy. This is what we need you to do. And then you come in with what you can do, and then you look for the different actors that are also synchronized in the coordinations. So it's about bringing people together and putting the different efforts together, and they're not working in silos. So going together for it.
I want to give a specific example of a project that we did.
Yeah, sure.
For Roche Laboratories. It was a project that we did in oncology, so cancer treatment. And what we did was to create some ecosystem project where we're bringing all the actors in the cancer ecosystem. Doctors, NGOs, I mean everybody. What we did, we created an innovation journey where everybody was included, the government also. And we did a scouting in the world of all solutions that are touching cancer. And what we did is we found very interesting solutions in India that were not costly. We worked with the local partners and the doctors and everybody to adapt this solution. And at this point, one startup in Cote d'Ivoire is working to collect the data, so it's part of a project. Roche is financing all the work around it, and we're working with a startup in India to adapt this solution and bring it to Cote d'Ivoire and launch it all around Cote d'Ivoire, the Ministry of Health. So this is a kind of collaboration that I think can show how we can go faster in innovation. We don't need to sit here in Cote d'Ivoire and start doing our little slow innovation with little things. A lot of the solutions that we see in the markets have already been tested in other markets. They are working, we know what works, what doesn't work. How can we go and pick those solutions, adapt them, work with the ecosystem so we can send it out as an ecosystem solution and everybody can benefit from it? I think that's where innovation can be more triggered in the market.
100%. So you just asked a very important question. I think I'll wear a different hat, and instead of moderator, I'll wear the hat of Enriching Africa Center. You just asked, how can you then get all of that information without replicating? So the Enriching Africa Center is an aggregator of all ecosystems, Pan-African and Europe. So instead of you searching for data randomly or for opportunities, it's a one-stop shop that you can access to be able to get into other regions, Africa or in parts of Europe. Okay. Back to my hat as moderator. Dexter, to you, I think the conversation has been building up. It's taking a tone of how the ecosystem, the different actors in the ecosystem are collaborating. I'd like to just change it a little bit and focus on the startups themselves in what they can do in terms of activities towards growth. So my question towards you is like, what technological trends do you see as game changers for African startups, and how can support organization help startups adopt these technology strategies?
Thank you. That's a great question. Like we said, with Frontline, we are working since 6 years now with our startup, and we work with like a renowned company like Flutterwave, now with Paystack in Nigeria, and but we really like to work with like a small startup, because we start with company with 4 co-founders that are all software engineers, because we were looking to help our fellow software engineers to get access to our team job. And with our first time, this our kind of profile is first time co-founders. Like we don't have necessarily like a background in tech. We don't have necessarily a co-founder that is a tech software developer, and we like to sit with this kind of profile to discuss about like how to put like a proper strategy to build like a proper team to build a different solution, because some of them can be really low in cash. They can face like a risk difficulty and can say, okay, I will take just some few junior software developer to build like this big solution. But instead of that, you can use that strategy to say, okay, I will spend more money on putting on board like a senior software developer that understand how to build like a proper solution to put like some solid solution on ground. And now you can have your junior software developer or intermediate to come on board and work. And in the other side, with our incubators, we really like to work with our incubators. Like we work with Mass Challenge in USA, Impact in Germany, and I think last month we started to work with DG Farm. I have an opportunity to work with three ladies in different activities. It was really interesting to work with them to help them better craft like the business model and everything. That was really interesting, and I think Alex also participate to this program. I will say there is a big issue for startup when you talk about infrastructure cost. Like for companies that are located in Lagos or Kenya, we know already that when you get access to an accelerator, you can have this kind of support, like have AWS credit for free, 25,000 K to run your infrastructure. In my case, for example, we get access to a credit from Microsoft for our Copilot. Like we have around 100K in credit to build any model we want, like in machine learning we are using now. Like for us, when we discuss with startup, we try to let them know, especially in this area, that okay, you don't have to lower your vision about your product, because like this AWS bill or AWS bill that can cost you $500 to run your server, you can say, okay, I don't want to open my app to customers that are located in Nigeria or in Kenya, because if a bill comes, I know I can pay my software developer, I can pay the CEO. Like you have to make a choice. Like in this scenario, you have to wait for accelerator and co-working space in our Ivory Coast. Try to get access to this kind of perks for our startup in Africa, in Ivory Coast, for example, to make sure that we can at least build the solution we have in mind, and later try to get access to VCs to try to like create like I would say a bigger solution in the future.
Thank you so much. Just combining now from what you've said from the startup, what the startup themselves can do, from the DFI, from the ESO, and from the investor. Just one very brief last comment to this question as we wrap up the conversation and potentially open it for comment. You know, let's bring it home to Abidjan and to Côte d'Ivoire, right? What collaborative strategies can be employed to address the challenges that we mentioned? You know, very briefly, I'll take it around the platform. So the question is, on the different challenges that we've mentioned, even the different approaches, what collaborative strategies can be implemented in the context of Abidjan and Côte d'Ivoire?
Sure. For the context of Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire, I think this year will be my first year experience working in Abidjan. For what I've seen so far, talking to some of the VCs saying that they have challenges with pipeline, getting portfolio, and talking to startups also saying we don't see VCs, we don't see investor coming in Francophone West Africa. I think there's a mismatch between the readiness, their readiness, and also for the VC to kind of break down their criteria, and then their vehicle, their funding vehicle. So one thing we thought and we are planning to do also is to help the VC in finding the pipeline, as pipeline, building the pipeline for them from early stage to growth stage. And we are working with the different partners, setting up the VC community and making some matching fund available for them, whereby from 15,000 to 200,000 euro, we come in and then give some support, and the VC can top up the same amount. The second thing is also investment readiness with some of our partner like Comway Capital, Investisseur Partner, and other partner like Green Tech Capital and Venture ESG. How to help those startups to meet the requirements, and then having the community growing up for the next 9 years, because our project is running from now to 9 years, and we want during that 9 years to build the community, to build the pipeline, take them from early stage to the growth, whereby they can meet the requirements and then get investment, follow-up investment from other investors, and then growth outside the region.
Fantastic, fantastic. Nadine?
Yes,
Parting
maybe I would.
shot?
Yes, I would conclude by a question actually, which I will try to better explain. The question is, who pays for the readiness? When we're working as incubators, when the startups locally here are not willing to pay because they're used to programs being paid by donors. So nobody wants to pay. The investors don't want to pay for the startups to be ready. The startups don't want to pay to be ready. How do the incubators run and deliver the good quality readiness program? What we generally have is fragmented program. You have a 6-month, 4 to 6 month incubation program. That's not enough for a business to kick off. Once you're done with the 6 months, it's done. You drop the startup from here. Nobody else is willing to pay to continue the process. So it's really for us to have this mindset when it comes to it. It's an ecosystem building initiative. Everybody needs to understand that when startups will grow, it has repercussion for the government, for investors, and also for when it comes to even youth employment. So everybody needs to be investing in enterprise support organization so that we can bring out those big talent. We also have who pays, again, is the question of competitors, right? When we are in an environment where government and private entities that are supposed to support the existing infrastructure so they can be strengthened and better support the ecosystem are creating other organizations, it's creating this fragmented space where the startups or the incubators that are existing are not growing. They are not improving their capacity. Now there's AI, there's all of this. We need to be trained so we can train the startups. If we don't get anybody paying for our training, it's a social business. Who pays for it? So it's this question that I think is very crucial in this ecosystem. People are willing to help, startups are willing to grow. Nobody is willing to pay the right price for the ecosystem to move. So yeah.
GIZ, hint, hint. Hint, hint. I wish the Stefan was in the room also.
I think we pay for some, and we are looking for a regional partner to work on, because currently for the project I'm working on Catalyst, we are, even though we are focused on climate, but we have other projects in different sector. But what we are currently doing is plan to create a network of in climate, a climate track for West Africa. And we are looking for a regional actors whereby we want to leverage on them, because we don't want to create institutions or organizations, but we want to leverage something that is already ongoing in West Africa. And we have partners. We have, I mentioned Venture ESG, Green Tech Capital, and Investisseur Partner, who will be doing those training for ESOs, for incubators, whereby they can get their startups ready to come and meet them at the investment stage.
Okay, got you.
Yes, there are different type of stakeholders. So there are the grant provider, like private foundation. There are the DFI, which have a lot of subsidiaries. The one for the state, the one for the private sector, the one that give grants also. There are the VCs funds. So I think we all have, there is an incubator, of course, which we've all the expertise are here, and we need to build community of practice, but to institutionalize it, just not one topic. So indeed, there will be one actor, one stakeholder that will initiate, ignite the flame, and finance it. The example that you give for Roche is a good example, and for, I don't know, GIZ, it will be a climate topic that will lead this need to foster the community of practice around one topic. And then we just need to keep the discussion going in order to not just finance a topic, but continue to brainstorm and be on the evolution of the sector that will have been chosen. So this is one way to do that.
So just recapping so far, as we wrap up, Dexter, you give the last strategy on supporting the ecosystem. Alex, you mentioned that whole mapping, all right, who is in the ecosystem and the mapping of the donor community. Nadine, you mentioned who is paying the bill. We need to have those frank conversations about who is paying the bill, and without replicating and forming new organizations that compete with already functional ESOs on the ground, right? And I think Aurelia, you brought in a very interesting angle about operationalizing that, where we have per sector or per topic, community of practice, task force, so to speak, that can actually coordinate who is paying the bill in that particular sector, who is supporting, to what level, and where will investors come in. Dexter, as you, the last strategy on that same question?
I think money is a key problem.
Okay.
And to try to solve a bit of this issue, like people have to be more open to volunteer to programs, to be open to like spend like 1 hour, 2 hours to with our other communities, to explain them how to like what's going on really in the startup ecosystem. Because like when you go to schools, I work also with as a consultant with Simplon, for example, that train software engineers, and for them, they don't have like a great perspective of what is possible in the market. You have to go with them, try to explain them. Okay, this is like a big competitor on the market. This what like have been possible to do. For example, in Nigeria, to explain like a story like a Factorway, Paystack, or all these different startups, to show them like it's possible to dream big in Africa. And when you are able to like to share this idea, this vision about like it's not about like I'm studying here in Africa and okay, I will just have my way to go like in Europe or in USA like to find a better life. Like you have to understand that opportunities are available on the market and you have to just find your way. But people have to like live like a comfort zone to come and meet younger people to explain them. And even I will say people that are in the corporate world that sometimes they are in the corporate world, but they have some dreams, but they don't know how to connect with people that are maybe aligned with them, that want to build great things. Like we have to find a way to connect everybody in the same place and try like try to replicate what have been done in Ghana, in Kenya, in Nigeria, for example. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much to my amazing panel. And I think we've all had the different perspectives from DFI and ESO, Invexta, and even from direct working with the startups and technologies for the startups, how we can support the whole ecosystem to actually foster growth, and in context of Ivory Coast and Abidjan. I would like to just open up for very brief questions. Not sure how much time I have in terms. I've got 10 minutes. Okay, good. If there are any questions to any of the panelists from the audience.
Thank you. Well, I was going to ask her a question.
Sorry.
Yeah, so my question is to you, Nadine, and thank you so much for bringing up the point of paying. Because I was going to ask you, outside of funding, what is on your wish list? And who would be, if I had a magic wand, which I don't, and there was one person you wanted to be in front of to have that ask because you think they could do it, who would be the person? Maybe not exactly the person, but like the title or something like that. Yeah.
I think maybe I'll ask you a question. Which hats am I speaking on? Is it am I ESO if I'm speaking for startup or as an ESO? Where do you want me to position?
As an ESO.
Okay.
Yeah, from Impact Hub, right?
Okay. Yes. So I think one big thing that is missing in the ecosystem is talents. right here, if we want to stimulate the ecosystem, we need people who have the mindset to create the businesses and start from zero and run with them till the end. And I think that's what is missing in the ecosystem. Currently, I'm running another program which is called the DigiFarm program, where we are training women to create startups. And how we do that is by teaching them how to learn and working on their resilience so they can start something and get to the end, by also learning other skills when it comes to tech. Why talent is very important, because you can have a very nice idea, and we have a lot of nice ideas. We run hackathons and so many things, and people come with nice ideas. But if you don't have the right mindset, you don't have the right thinking, you cannot take the idea to the next step. And taking the idea to the next step is also being willing to sacrifice, right? It can be a small amount, like you mentioned, you need to pay for a server. Sometimes it's a little amount, and people get stuck because they are not used to taking ideas to the next level. If you had this magic stick to give me, I think, is to create this kind of platform for the government to better understand how they can position themselves and collaborate better with ESOs. I think Save, like they mentioned this morning, has tried to create this platform, but this is a small group, right? They are selecting a few startups that are performing well and working with them to become local champions. What we want to look at is how do we create this big pipeline of startups? Because why the market is not moving is because there are not enough startups. When I call investors and I bring them to Impact Hub, sometimes you can only bring 5 startups that even have an idea that makes sense. So it's not the question that there's no funding to fund the startups. It's that we don't have quality startups. So we need people to invest in building those one. And the government needs to sit with ESOs, and that's the government I think I'm talking to. They need to come and sit with ESOs and see how we can create programs to emulate and stimulate really the ecosystem to create such startups. And it will go into the education system and so many other things that will help really to boost. When we have enough startups, ESOs will be able to survive, because if one startup pays maybe, I don't know, 10,000 a month, and there are so many of them, it will be big enough to not always need DFIs to invest in ESOs. But we don't really have that here. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think talking about talent is really important. But I will say it, what you said previously, in this ecosystem, like mostly in Francophone ecosystem, are not really allowed to make mistake. Like you start your startup and you fail. But when you check the Nigerian ecosystem, for example, you can see that the company that are successful in the market are people, 2-time co-founders. There are people that already tried, failed, and was able to build a new company. And these co-founders joined just another company, just a manager, just software engineer, but there are a lot of understanding of how to run a startup. And I think the more and more when companies and startups in Ivory Coast, I would say the issue is mostly about cash, but try to fail first, try to break things on the way, to see if the product works exactly. Because you can spend 1 year, 2 years just building your tool, but you have to give your product to your users to try. And if you fail, you know you fail. It's not something that you have to waste your time on it. You have to think about a new idea or try to join another organization to provide value, because at the end of the day, you have to provide value to the consumer. And talent, for talent, we have to allow people to fail first, to learn and be able to share their knowledge to the community, because when we do this knowledge sharing, is always great for the community.
I really literally have 2 minutes left on this panel. Okay, I'm gonna take, besides this hand, is there any other one? Then I can just ask for some mercy to extend a couple of minutes. Is that the only hand? Okay, all right, sure, go ahead, sir.
Thank you all so much. First, great work with Roche. I think that this is what we need, and it is done in other part of the world. And I have a question for Aurélie, of course. now that we are going towards a more personalized health medicine, as we call, and Sanofi has recently done a partnership with EPEDIS for the distribution of the pharmaceutical product in sub-Saharan Africa. How do we ensure that we leverage the local startup and the heat technology now to make sure that the medicine are the right ones for the population? How do we get that? And how we startup like UpMeds, of course, can contribute to?
Well, the medicine are the right for the populations. It's the other way around. So each big pharma have some specialty, some really special portfolio of medicines. For Sanofi, it is really the non-communicable disease. So the idea is to go to the Ministry of Health and understand what is the priority of the ministry in terms of the different stream of healthcare issue. Sanofi, indeed, the focus is more diabetes, cardiovascular, a little of cancer, but Roche is a good one on it. So each big pharma come with its specialty and try to bring all the tools that is within the company to tackle this specific issue. So with Sanofi, indeed, the Impact Fund has not been created alone as a standalone initiative. It has been created within a global health unit with a pillar around the drugs, which are very at affordable costs compared to other countries where it can be sold also. We have the capacity building, so we train healthcare professionals to the better patient, the better prise en charge, the better support of the patient journey on the NCD's issue, and then there is the impact fund that finance the type of solution that can help on that specific topic.
Okay, is that a comment? Am I allowed, MC? Am I allowed?
This is the last one.
Okay, all right. Well, you know someone from within the organization.
You know, you gotta work.
Go for it. Go for
Of the
it.
system. The comment was in regards to the failing part. I think we have to be cautious and have a nuanced take on it, because what we don't want to create either, because we're such a new ecosystem, is people failing and then moving on so quickly that the investor, because I'm talking with the head of an investor now, we look at you and we go, well, you can't seem to be holding onto any project long enough, right? And it is actually a difference that we're noticing, you know, not to offend anyone, between the Nigerian ecosystem and most of the rest of the countries, because it's like you start to be worried that a founder will start an idea, they amass a lot of money in funding, it doesn't really work out, and they just move on. And we're noticing that in Francophone Africa, the founders that make it, they're much more resilient. They've failed in the past, but they're much more resilient because they're not just trying to jump to the next thing. So yes, fail, but it's more like maybe pivot instead of failing and abandoning.
Okay. Right.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. I have to get permission. Am I allowed?
Quick.
Fantastic.
Very quickly, I think to the startups in the room, one very important point is really find your niche, find the need, and do the work. What I want to say is when we're working with startups, just to fill a value proposition Canva, they don't have time for it. So the work that you need to find the right need and start working on the project, nobody wants to do it. They want me to work on the business model canvas for them, do the value proposition and do the pitch. So at the end of the day, if you don't work, nothing is going to happen. So it's not about pitching, it's not about going to events, it's about sitting down, thinking and doing the work. So this is my advice really to startup, they need to do the work.
100%. And that's a wrap. And thank you so much. Just in conclusion, we looked at it from both the startup perspective, their own input. We looked at it from the ecosystem perspective as well as public sector. I really hope there was some public sector that could have answered some tough questions we wanted to ask them. But I think the key takeaway from this conversation is that in particular to the ecosystem in Ivory Coast. I think it's very critical to then create that macro structure where we identify key verticals that are aligned with the national economic plan of the country, and then start doubling down from that macro, how the DFI comes in, how does the ESO come in, how does the investment community come in, and the startup ecosystem come in. Ultimately, if we do that and have that institutionalized, we are able to actually see the growth and track the growth. So I hope you are going to please add me to that WhatsApp group for the task force as the Enriching Africa Center. We would then love for you to leverage the rest of the ecosystem and some of the connections and the networks that we already have without you repeating the same failures. All right. Thank you very much. And thank you for making it to the, is it the last panel?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And over back to you.
Amazing. Can we please give them a round of applause?